I'm Casey M. Sustento, a student of Mindanao State University, General Santos City. Would like to present a video lecture about chemical bonding. Let's discuss first the objective for today's topic. First, we must learn the very basic what is chemical bonding, any of the interactions that account for the association of atoms into molecules,
chemical
ions,
bonding?
and other species.
So let's
A
see.
chemical bond is a bond that holds atoms together. It is the force that binds ion or molecules together. It helps form a chemical compound. Chemical bonding bonds between atoms that are formed during chemical reactions. These bonds allow substances containing two or more atoms to be formed. They are formed by electrostatic forces of attractions between the oppositely charged nuclei and electrons, or by a dipole attraction. So, what is atom? An atom is the smallest is a particle of matter that uniquely defines a chemical element. Atom is the smallest unit of an ordinary matter that forms a chemical element. Every solid, liquid, and gas and plasma is composed of neutral or ionized atoms. Atoms are extremely small, typically around 100 picometers across. Examples of the atoms are neon, hydrogen, argon, and iron, and especially the calcium. So, an, an additional example would be chemical compounds. Example of the chemical compounds that are especially interest to biologists are water, sodium chloride, and carbon dioxide. These chemical compounds are formed by the chemical bond that binds the constituent atoms. For instance, water is comprised of two hydrogen atoms, two, and an oxygen connected by the chemical bonds. So what are the types of chemical bonding? First, let's discuss about chemical bond, the octet rule. The types of chemical bonding. First, let's discuss about the octet rule. The octet rule states that atoms gain or lose electrons to attain an outer shell electron configuration nearest that of a noble gas. The attractive force between atoms is informally measured with this rule. So, the octet rule explains how atoms from different elements combine to form molecules in chemistry. Many elements are not chemically stable by themselves. An atom obtains stability through sharing electrons. The octet rule firmly limits the number of atoms for each element in a molecule in a chemical formula. For example, calcium fluoride is CaF2 because it has two fluorine atoms and one calcium atom. So that explains the octet rule. And the additional for this definition is it dictates particular electron placement on the orbitals of the atom's nucleus. It also determines whether electrons are added or lost through chemical reactions and measures chemical reactivity of atoms based upon their specific electron configurations. So first, let's discuss also what is a valence shell. A valence shell is that the electrons that surround the core of every atom are organized into complex concentric regions called shells. Valence shells, the outermost or valence shells of atoms, are particular interest to chemists because they contain the electrons that participate in chemical reactions. When the valence shell of an atom is full, It does not react with other atoms. Atoms having incomplete valence shell, on the other hand, rapidly interact with their neighbors to form molecules. According to the octet rule, atoms react to generate compounds with 8 valence electrons, such as noble gases, which are the least reactive elements. Balloons, light bulbs, and lit signs are employ noble gases. The valence shell of most elements needs 8 electrons to fail. 8 electron. The octet rule states that an atom is complete when its valence shell has 8 electrons. Incomplete atoms are shared electrons, resulting in full valence shell. Noble gases such as neon and argon, noble gases such as neon and argon are chemically inert and rarely from molecules because their valence shells have already been filled. When other elements combine, their valence shell usually take on the configuration of the noble gas closest to them in the periodic table based on atomic number. Atoms can form either ionic or covalent bonds to satisfy the octet rule. So, let's discuss one by one. Ionic bonding first. Ionic bond is also called electrovalent bond, type of linkage formed from the electrostatic attraction between oppositely charged ions in a chemical compound. Such a bond forms when the valence or outermost electrons of one atom are transferred permanently to another atom. The atom that loses the electrons becomes a positively charged ion, or cation, while the one that gains them becomes a negatively charged ion called anion. Example of an ionic bond is sodium chloride or table salt. Non-ionic bonding in sodium chloride, an atom of sodium or Na donates one of its electrons to an atom of chlorine in a chemical reaction, and the resulting positive ion Na positive and negative ion, chlorine negative, from a stable ionic compound, sodium chloride common table salt, based on this ionic bond. So let's proceed about the covalent bonding. So covalent bonding in chemistry, the interatomic linkage that results from the sharing of an electron pair between two atoms. The binding arises from the electrostatic attraction of their nuclei for the same electrons. A covalent bond forms when the bonded atoms have a lower total energy than that of widely separated atoms. An additional definition of covalent bonding is that can be defined as the increased probability of finding electrons between two atoms resulting from electron sharing. Covalent bonds are much more common in organic chemistry than ionic bonds. A covalent bond consists of simultaneous attractions of two nuclei for one or more pairs of electrons. The electrons located between the two nuclei are bonding electrons. Covalent bonds occur between identical atoms or between different atoms whose difference in electronegativity is insufficient to allow transfer of electrons to form ions. Each atom in the hydrogen chloride molecule attains a closed shell octet of electrons. By sharing hence achieves a maximum lowering of energy. In general, an incomplete shell means that some attracting power of nucleus may be wasted. and adding electrons beyond the closed shell should entail the energetic disadvantage of beginning the next shell of the atom concerned. Lewis' octet rule is again applicable and is seen to represent the extreme means of achieving lower energy rather than being a goal in itself. Example for this is the polar covalent bond, which mean is such as the between hydrogen and oxygen, the electron are not transferred from one atom to another as they are in an ionic bond. Instead, some outer electrons merely spend more time in the vicinity of the other atom. The effect of this orbital distortion is to induce regional net charges that holds the atom together, such as water molecules. Lewis formulation, covalent bond. In Lewis' term of covalent bond is shared electron pair. The bond between a hydrogen atom and a chlorine atom in hydrogen chloride is formulated as follows. In a Lewis structure of a covalent compound, the shared electron pair between the halogen and chlorine ions is represented by a line. The electron pair is called a bonding pair. The three of other pairs of electrons of the chlorine atom are called lone pairs and play no direct role in holding the two atoms together. So, this will be the last slide of our topic, and I would like you to share a science thing. We live in a society exquisitely dependent on science and technology, which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology. I hope you appreciate and gain knowledge from my topic and keep safe everyone.